So I'll just introduce myself for those of you that don't know me. My name is Julie Dorr. I was born in Northampton and I grew up in rugby. I went all through my school years in rugby, and then I moved to Northampton for a while and worked there for a while. Had a marriage breakdown, came back to rugby for a while. I've lived in Leicestershire as well for a while. And in 2006, at that time, I was a crazy ass bank manager who was tearing around the country doing 1,000 miles a week in a Mercedes-Benz, living life in the fast lane, playing very hard, working very hard. I thought she was invincible. What I didn't realise, and what I was never ready to admit, was that I had a massive eating disorder. I never thought of it as an eating disorder, I just thought I was a compulsive eater. You know, I didn't realise that it had any ties with my emotions. I didn't even know what my emotions were at that time. I was just totally disconnected from my body and totally disconnected from my mind. So in 2006 I had a massive shock because my mum had been recovered from breast cancer for 5 years. And I got a phone call while I was in a meeting with my boss from my dad, to say, your mum's in hospital, she's very confused. And she'd had loads of radiotherapy, loads of chemotherapy. She was in a pretty bad way. She had moments of clarity, but it was like she went into Alzheimer's disease immediately. She didn't survive. She was in hospital for 3 days, and the doctors told me that she probably wasn't going to be with us for very much longer. So we got her home, and I spent the last 5 days with her of her life at home with her. It totally changed my world. You know, I'd been invincible up to that point, and all of a sudden my life was out of my hands. My emotions were out of my hands. Everything was just turned upside down. It's like someone got the rule book and just went woo. So to cut a very long story short, I had a nervous breakdown after a while. I couldn't go back to work again. I actually physically tried to go back to work again, and that's another story, but the universe was not having me back in that office, come hell or high water. Yeah, it's quite a funny story. I must blog about it one time, but I gave up my job. I was on long-term sick for a long time, didn't really know what to do, was scared to death about giving up a 50 grand a year job. You know, how was I going to pay for the mortgage, how this, how that. So I went on a yoga retreat in Egypt, and it was great. It was really good. I've never been travelling abroad on my own before, so well done you guys, because I'd never done it until this time. And yeah, and I met this girl and we got on really, really well, and we were in the cab going back to the airport at the end of the retreat, and she said, this classic question, where do you see yourself this time next year? And I went, well, I don't know. I don't even know what's happening next week. You know, my life was like very much day to day at the time. And I said, what about you? She says, well, I'm going to move out, leave my boyfriend because he was being nasty to her, and I'm going to get myself a flat somewhere in a better area. She lived in Bristol. And I says, well, I think I'm going to be a yoga teacher. And I'm like, what? Where did that come from? And so that was in the August, I think. And then I went, in the October, I went to Mexico and did my first teacher training, which was okay. But I mean, I just couldn't grasp it all. It was really spiritual, and I'm like, wow, man, chanting. Just tell me how to do a downward dog and I'll be fine. So I went on and I did that course. Didn't really feel that confident, and but I did start teaching in the following January. So that was January 2007. So I've been teaching for 10 years now, and then I went to India in 2009 and did a more advanced teacher training, and then I did another teacher training in Peru, which was a little bit later. I think it was 2011, which didn't work out that well, but it introduced me to shamanism, which is more of a spiritual healing concept. It gave yoga a more healing element for me. And as you know, I'm doing or some of you might know, I'm doing a shamanic yoga workshop on Friday. So it just brings a lot more healing into the yoga practice. So it becomes yoga really starts with the body, and then with practice you get all of the emotional benefits and the mindful benefits, and eventually that lifts your spirit. Well, shamanism starts with spirit, which has a great effect on your mind and your emotions, and therefore, because the mind and body are connected, when your emotions are a lot more stable, your body starts to heal, and you start to enjoy better physical health. So the two are coming from the opposite directions, but actually they meet really nicely in the middle, and we all become wonderfully balanced. So when I went to India, my teacher gave me the name Chinmayi, which means bestower of bliss. I thought it sounded a bit Chinesey actually when he first gave it to me, and I wasn't sure whether we liked it. But then I realised that there is a mudra in yoga, which is this one, which is Chinmaya mudra, and it means bliss, attitude of bliss. So Chinmayi is the feminine of that. In Spain, of course, the A makes it feminine, but in Hindi and Sanskrit, the I makes it a feminine. So there I was quite happy about that, because I quite like Chinmaya mudra. So that's where I got the name from. And I wanted to use Chinmayi Dor as kind of a pen name, really, because I wanted people to get a blissful end to emotional eating. So that's hence the title. So I just thought I'd explain that a little bit with you. So that's a little bit about me. I have a daughter, she's 24 now. She's working in the NHS, so she's kind of going along similar lines. She's doing really well. And a husband that's in Spain at the moment working, so he's also a Midlander. So I don't know, I think food was I saw it as, I was so manic all the time, I was so crazy busy all the time. It was just what kept me going. But actually what it was doing was distracting me, because my mind was full of food. I was constantly thinking about food. And my whole social life revolved around food. You know, even when I was going out raving, I would get people to come up to my house. I had friends that lived in Essex, and they would come up like in 3 carloads, and I'd make this great big meal for them all, you know. Everything, and I don't know whether it was about approval as well, wanting to be approved of, you know. I can do all this cooking, and I can provide for my friends, and I can share all of this. You know, 9 times out of 10 they didn't want to eat, they weren't bothered. But it was a way of kind of, I don't know whether it was just approval, but it was like looking after people. I still like looking after people, but yeah, it was always about the food. It was when it came down to it, if you peeled off all the reasons, everything was about food. So it's a wonder really that I had time for anything else.
So were you overweight at that time?
Yes, I was. I was almost 12 stone at my tip.
Yeah, but you're tall. You're tall.
Yeah, you see, this is what people used to say to me. You don't need to lose weight, you're fine as you are. Do you know what I did then? I'd go and eat some more.
Oh.
It was it wasn't their fault. No. It was just, I'm not saying, I mean, if anybody told me to turn around and say, you're overweight, you need to lose some weight, I'd have been mortified. But it's really interesting, I'm just going to digress a little bit on that point, because when I was thin, people would always say to me, I mean, I was 9 stone 2, I think, at my lowest. I was gaunt, my shoulder blade bones were sticking out. And I was doing a lot of drugs at the time as well, so I wasn't eating, you know, I wasn't eating for days. Yeah. Did I say something I said? But yeah, but people would always come up to me and say, oh, you've got too thin. Even when I was 10 stone, they were saying, you're too thin, you need to put some weight on, you need to put some meat on you, are you alright, what's wrong with you? But no one ever said to me when I was 12 stone, you've put a lot of weight on, do you think you should go on a diet? You know, people can't handle it when people are thin. And I actually know somebody who is bordering obese now, but she spent all of her teenage years and her 20s skinny, almost anorexic. And she was a vegetarian, and oddly enough, when she started eating meat, she started putting weight on. And she says, I love being overweight, because nobody ever tells me that I'm too thin anymore. Nobody ever comments about my body image. So it's interesting, isn't it, how we take notice of what people say. And I used to think people were jealous of me, you know, because I was looking thin. I did actually look pretty awful. You know, and the older we get, I personally believe that I don't like being thin now because I think as I get older I can look a bit scrawny. No, it's not.
I think people as well, I think it's a compliment to say, even if they do it in that way, you need to put on weight, that they're complimenting you as well by saying you're thin.
Whereas saying you need to lose weight,
right,
it's offending you.
It's always offensive.
I write a chapter called Support or Solitude in the book, and it's really about how people treat you when you're dieting, you know, and one of the reasons why dieting has to stop, because it's a mind. It's just a game with the mind, ultimately. And while we're talking about body image, what do you think of that?
Yeah.
I mean, I know the article's about her waistline, but look at her thigh. I looked straight at her thighs and I thought, that's brilliant. I think it's amazing how they're starting to change.
It is changing.
She hasn't got sticks for legs.
Yeah, it's fashion as well.
But she's still...
The fashion is, the fashion that's coming in now is all going back to the way it was, where you had that really kinched in waist. And it's very hourglass. It's in fashion now to be womanly and strong and healthy.
Still perfect in a way, as in
still quite
where's
perfect,
the mummy tummy, where's the stretch marks,
I
she's still, you know.
And it looks like her waist's probably been airbrushed.
That's what I was going to say. But the thighs, I really like her
They might have been made bigger to make her waist look thicker.
Why not? So that would be a turn up, wouldn't it? Yeah, there's quite a few pictures of her in here, and I just think it's quite encouraging. You know, that's a woman's health magazine. It's not Vogue or Marie Claire.
It's skinny little young things, isn't it?
So I think that's quite encouraging. So this is how the process used to go for me. I don't expect you to be able to read this. I'm using it for my benefit, but so I would have unresolved emotions. My emotion, in the book I ask you to take a look at your emotions and narrow them down to the overriding emotion, the one that's controlling your life at the moment. We've always got them. There's always some emotion. It might even be bliss, you know, but there's always something going on. But we can narrow it down with some of the exercises in the book. But there might be some that are, when there's emotional eating, or any eating disorder actually, there is always an emotion that's behind it, that's connecting it to those food habits and addictions. So for me it was anger at the time. I grew up in a pretty angry household actually, and when my mum died my anger just got out of control, total. There are different forms of anger. There's resentment, there's jealousy, there's irritability, there's frustration, there's lots of variations of anger, and I would probably dart between all of them at the time. So I had unresolved emotions that became unmanageable. I wasn't able to cope with them. I wasn't able to cope with my anger and my disappointment, you know, that my mum had passed away. So the overeating or the food addictions, because I did have some of those, would suppress those emotions, and they would soothe my emotions temporarily. And we talk a lot about this hand-to-mouth thing, like we're born, I talked about this on the radio as well, we're born and we go straight to the breast. And we all cry for the breast even if we're not hungry, because it's comforting. You know, and I think this is why a lot of people smoke. You know, a lot of people eat certain things, sugar particularly is a great comforter, isn't it? Bread, they're homely things, they're things that Mum might have given us when she wanted to, you know, warm us up on a cold day. So we've got a little bit of kind of memory there, what I call it taste memory. So I would overeat, and then I would have weight gain would take place, which supports the stress and famine response. I'm going to talk about those in a little while. But when you get stressed, you produce cortisol, and that goes straight here. It basically tells your body to add fat to your body, and it goes straight here to protect your organs, because we've got part of our brain called the reptilian brain. It's not changed in like thousands and thousands of years. And yet look at our lifestyle, look how much our lifestyle has been transformed. So we stop eating, or we stop eating what the body thinks is normal. So the famine response kicks in and says, oh, you're starving me. Oh my God, I better stock up. So that's why you always lose a lot of weight to begin with, because the body hasn't thought about it. Because it's a reptilian brain, it takes life easily. You know, when we were living in caves, we didn't have to make great big adjustments that quickly. So you'll lose a lot of weight really quickly. Maybe you'll go to Weight Watchers, 7 pounds in the first week, and then the next week it's a pound. You're like, oh. And the reason is because the famine response kicks in, all the hormones change in your body, the cortisol that you're produces adds fat to your middle, and it stops you from losing weight because the body, your brain thinks that you're starving, that there's something wrong with your food supply. So then you might lose a bit more weight maybe because you start making even more adjustments or doing more exercise to try and lose the weight. And then at some point you'll get fed up with it, right? How many diets work for emotional eaters? They don't, okay? So you get fed up with it, so you'll start eating again. The body's like, oh, we've got food again. Okay, well let's just stock it up and not try to increase the metabolism too fast because there might be another fast or another famine on the way. So what happens? You put even more weight back on than you had when you started. I mean, it's so unfair, isn't it, really, when you think about it? But when you understand the body as trying to look after you, your whole body is an amazing machine. So the weight gain takes place to support the stress and the famine response. And then dieting seems like the only answer. You want to do more dieting, you want to work harder this time because you failed on some level the last time, so you have to go and do something different. I know, I'll try Slim Fast this time. Or this is great Nutri something. I like the way they're putting Nutri in front of all the diets these days, you know, because it makes it sound like it's healthy. There's nothing healthy about a packet of powder that you mix with water and drink as a meal replacement. What do you think the famine response is going to think of that? It's going to say, oh, quick, we need some more cortisol in there because she's starving me again. So then, of course, dieting seems the only answer, but it challenges the emotions even further because I feel like a failure. So then I would enter a new emotional support dependency that alleviates the difficult emotions. So I'd do something else. I'd change my way of thinking slightly for a little while, and just to get rid of those difficult emotions. I'd choose a new course or I'd take a new line of thinking. And the weight loss would give me emotions a positive boost, and things seem to be going well. But the new dependency increases. I get too much stuck in that rut, and then it disrupts my life and eventually my emotions. So I'll go to a wedding, or I'll go to Christmas will come, and then all of that new planning goes out of the window because I'm used to eating certain things at Christmas. I'm used to going to weddings and enjoying the buffet. So what happens? I feel like a failure all over again. The overeating returns to soothe the emotions. The new dependency still remains, and the emotions are still unresolved and become more even manageable. So it just becomes a big circle. We call it a cycle of suffering in yoga, don't we? So we have to break that cycle at some point. And people go through this their whole lives. You know, usually I went through it for 35 years. I did my first diet when I was 15. It was an apple diet. It lasted about 3 days before I binged even more. I walked in to my mum's house, walked in the back door as I always did. She's got this beautiful apple crumble sitting on the side with some cold custard. I couldn't wait. I thought, this is apples? This'll do. So ultimately, the reason why we do all of this is because we want to be happy. It's the only reason we do anything. We go to work because we want money, because it's going to make us happier. We go to yoga because we want to be happy. We meditate because we want to be happy. You know, we go out in the fresh air because we think it's going to make us happy. Everything we do in life is to be happy. And once we understand that, then we can start thinking about what makes us unhappy in that process. Because if it makes us unhappy in the process, we're never going to be happy, are we? Because it's just going to breed more unhappiness. So I'd just like you to have a think about what aspect of your life gets in the way of your happiness. It can be right at the moment, it can be generally, it could be something to do with some part of your life, it could be, I don't know, maybe when you see a certain relative makes you unhappy, anything like that. Just have a little think about what What gets in the way of your happiness? Close your eyes if it makes it easier to do this. You don't have to. You're not going to have to say it out loud, so don't worry to. Don't think of something that you think is going to be socially acceptable. Just think of something in your own mind. Okay. Now have a think about the emotions that are around that. They will generally be on the negative scale, obviously, so could be anger related or sadness related. But if any word comes to mind, okay. So think about a time when those emotions become a bit unbearable. What happens to you? What happens to your communication? What happens to your body? You're probably feeling a little bit of them now, I'm guessing. There's a few nods, so just allow yourself to feel it. You don't have to go there, but just allow yourself to feel it. What's happening in your body now? Where are you feeling it? Put your hand on that part of your body if you want to. Yeah. So we're all in our heart centre right now. So what would we like to do?
Tension. That's a bit
Tension. Feels like that.
Yeah. Like joints are sort of like.
Yeah. And for those of you that do eat emotionally, you'll probably want to fill that with some food because it feels like it's expanding it again. It's opening up again. So it's numbing that pain. So it's right here. But some comfort foods are going to make that feel a little bit better. Not for long and maybe not as effectively as you might imagine or one would like them to. But we're numbing. When we emotionally eat, we're trying to numb that feeling. Even if it's just a little while, we can't think beyond a few minutes, but it's just a way of numbing it, or absorbing it. And sometimes when it's in this place as well, it's because we feel out of control, because this chakra here is all about power and control. So on some level, this might be a love thing, this might be a relationship issue, or something that you're not able to accept, or forgive, or love, acceptance, forgiveness and peace. So that's usually the heart chakra stuff. If you're feeling it here, if you're feeling a sicky feeling, yes, yeah, it's usually because it's something that's out of your control. It's outside your control.
It's just a block.
Yeah, yeah. So what might be the long-term effect of that if you don't? If we did nothing, if we just carried on like this, how's it going?
Facing our true emotions, are we?
Yeah.
Never sorting them out, are we?
Yeah. Never going to be happy, are we?
No.
And it can become very unhealthy. If, your emotional eating is eating rubbish, you can actually become very unhealthy as well.
Yeah.
Physically as well as emotionally.
Yeah. It puts a different kind of stress on the body, doesn't it? If we're eating junk food all the time. I'm not saying only junk food. I mean, we might be eating. Even when I was emotionally eating, I wasn't eating crap all the time. I was eating healthy salads, and then I would just go home and fill my face with cakes and biscuits. I could eat a packet of hobnobs in half an hour, no problem. I wouldn't necessarily even feel full. It was ridiculous. That's why I can't even touch them now, because it's just this memory, this taste memory. I could easily just not stop. I could never eat one chocolate. I'd have to have one layer and then I'd go back for the other layer about half an hour later.
Exactly.
And I laugh, but it really wasn't. When I look back, it's not. It's quite sad, really. It's quite traumatic. But the long-term effect of that is what we see all around us: diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the book Grain Brain. It throws an awful lot of research onto Alzheimer's and dementia from grains. What do we eat when we want comfort? We want bread, pastry, potatoes. Well, potatoes aren't grains, but yeah, so it's quite interesting because our grains aren't what they used to be 100 years ago. They've been genetically modified and lots of gluten added to them. And they say that your gut is your second brain, so it's no wonder really. There is a direct, correlation between the gut and the brain. So yeah, I've been to Overeaters Anonymous. Hello, my name's Julie and I'm an emotional, no, I was an overeater, that's what I had to say. This is the thing, I want to talk about this a little bit. I'm not trying to disrespect the AA or the OA or the CA or the MA. You're probably going to wonder what do they mean. There's Alcoholics Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous and Marijuana Anonymous. I think there's quite a few of them.
Narcotics Anonymous.
Narcotics Anonymous, yeah, I was just trying to think of all the ones, but I really like this for most of life. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So I've just done a little bit on stress in the book as well, the different types of stress, because I've touched on this already. There's work stress, there's financial stress, family stress, education, like teenagers, that's why they have a lot of eating disorders around school time, bullying, this all comes under education, personality clashes. I don't know how we ever get through the puberty, do you? I'm watching my friend's 13-year-old girl, Sophia, go through it at the moment. She's only 12, bless her. Oh gosh, it's just like, takes me right back to when Leonie was.
It's starting so much younger, so like I work in a primary school, and they've had there's been lots of, I can think of, lots of incidents where mainly girls, but also boys are using food as a tool to, they won't eat their lunch and stuff like that.
It's control.
To control, that's the word I was looking for, yeah.
They want to assert themselves.
Yeah. And I don't remember that. It might have happened when I was young, but I don't remember that.
No.
Food was different then. Now it is, because their lives are so different to how intense. Everything is intense. Some of the children that I'm with are there at school, in the school environment, from 7 in the morning till 6 in the evening. And that's 5 days a week. And some of them are 4, 5 years old.
Wow. Yeah.
And we were kids as well. You got what you given or you went hungry.
Yeah.
It wasn't all
but it
this,
was a different environment though.
Yeah.
They get so much choice because their parents are emotional.
Yeah.
They're making up for the fact that they're not there and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's building, it's the building blocks of when they're adults, and there will be so many more people with eating disorders and overweight and underweight, whatever.
Yeah, it's quite worrying. I mean, I always try to see the positive in everything, but I'm so glad my daughter's not in school at the moment.
Yeah.
She did get through it. Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about how our dieting now affects our future generations as well. There's obviously time. I mean, time is as valuable a resource as money these days. It's becoming more important, isn't it? It's just people, they seem to have one or the other. People with money don't have any time, and people with time don't have any money. So there's that. The physical stress, so overtraining, overworking, competitiveness, drugs, alcohol, overeating. It's physical stress. The body doesn't need that food, so it's having to work harder to digest it. Mental, emotional, we've talked a few about those, and spiritual, self-esteem, lack of self-worth, confidence, purpose, connection, drive and enthusiasm. To me, that's spirit. So, what worked was having some daily practice, even if it was just a couple of minutes a day, because all of a sudden then I'm doing something for me, and when I start doing things for me, this void here starts to fill up again. And when we start thinking about, when you've been thinking about those emotions and what might be causing them, it's probably something will heal when you start giving yourself back to yourself from that situation. So kind of whether it's you stepping back from it a little bit, or whether you do something for yourself to protect yourself in that situation. Whatever it is, a little bit of practice will start to fill that void. So what also worked for me was one that gave me back my power, one that was based in the heart centre. I did write this earlier. Love, acceptance, forgiveness and compassion to myself first. Yeah, because if you haven't got any compassion, you need to know what compassion is. You need to know what it feels like. You need to know what it feels like to be forgiven before you can forgive anyone else. You can only pretend to forgive to someone unless you've forgiven yourself and you know what forgiveness feels like and know what acceptance feels like. And it's a massive thing, acceptance, when you're an emotional eater, because if you are overweight, you don't want to just be happy with your body. That's the last thing you want. You want to lose weight first before you're happy with your body. You know, so I've done a lot of this in my journey. Obviously, I've been through a lot of diets, and the reason why I stuck to so many diets or kept going back to new diets was because I didn't want something that was just going to help me to stop emotionally eating. I wanted to lose weight first because then I thought that I would feel great and then I could deal with the emotions. It don't work like that. You have to start with the emotions and then the weight starts to come off. One that gave me comfort and reassurance other than just putting my hand to mouth. So it had to give me some comfort. It had to make me feel better, even like temporarily. One that was without numbers. You think of dieters, they're obsessed with numbers.
Yeah.
How many pounds they want to lose, how many points they can eat, how many inches they want to get off their waist, how many weeks they want to do this in. So it had to be without numbers, and I think that's the key thing to this process, this program, if you like, if you want to call it that, this journey, is that you have to let the numbers go. You know, apart from maybe saying, well, okay, I'm going to give myself 5 minutes meditation this morning because that's all I can afford, then that's fine. But, you know, sooner or later, the key thing is the numbers. And do you know why? Because you've got two sides to your brain, and in yoga we've got two sides to our energy flows. One of them is masculine and one of them is feminine. And we've got two sides to the brain. So the left side of the brain is the logical side. And we have been brought up in our culture, certainly, to focus very much on the numbers, the facts and the figures. This will work, that won't work. So when we go for a diet, we really do believe it's going to work. We don't question it, we just go ahead and do it. We put all our faith in it because it's full of numbers. You can, how many diets do you sign up for where they say you can lose, I saw one today on Facebook actually, 14 pounds in 7 days. These photographs were so badly shopped, it was incredible. And it was a coffee. It was just a sachet of coffee. And you're going to lose 14 pounds in 10 days. This woman, I mean, she must have been really, really skinny, and she'd obviously had a boob job, so she looked like a Barbie doll. You're going to look like that in 40. You really do believe it, though, on some level, because your left brain can only think in numbers and days and pounds and stuff like that. So it had to be something without numbers, and it had to be one that was centred on optimising health in mind and body and spirit. So that was in the end, that was the only thing that ever worked. If I was just focusing on my body and ignoring my mind and ignoring my spiritual life, then it never worked. So for a lot of people will look at my book and think, it's not for me, because they're not ready. They're not ready to be on a spiritual journey. They're not ready to look at their emotions. They're not ready to look at their life and how it's not serving them because of the way that they think about their life and the way that a lot of people. I mean, I remember going to Weight Watchers and just sitting listening to them talking about their lives. They'll always be a victim. And because they'll always be a victim, they'll never probably get to that goal weight because they're not even thinking positively about it.
No, because it's all, I was on holiday or I was out that weekend, and that's why I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it that day, and I can't do it this week, and and we've all done, we've all done it and said it.
Yeah.
But it is that, yeah.
It's really
Definitely.
interesting. So in my book, I've come up with the two major principles of body magic are: one, to know thyself, and two, to know thy worth. And when I mentioned this holiday that I went on in Egypt, the first yoga holiday retreat that I went on, our teacher didn't turn up. It was supposed to be an Ashtanga yoga retreat. It was my first yoga retreat. What was I thinking? But thankfully the universe was looking out for me and gave me this wonderful South African lady, and she had a tattoo on her arm and it was in Latin and it was "Know thy worth." Isn't that funny? Mm-hmm. And it was only when I wrote the book, because I realised that I had to get to know myself. What I had to do to get to where I got to was to learn how to understand myself a lot better, know what my tendencies were, so that I could monitor it and get in touch with it a lot better, and to know my worth. Because if I didn't know my worth, then I was never going to invest any time, money, energy, or any focus on how to get there. So you've got to first you've got to understand how you behave in the world. And I don't mean like naughtily. I mean like how you interact with people, what your tendencies are, what you tend to do in certain situations. If you understand that, then you can be prepared for those in the future. Because if we're not aware of what we're doing and how we behave, then nothing's ever going to change. So some of the tools that I offer in the book are a journal. I think a journal is amazing to learn to understand yourself. It's also really encouraging when you go back to January and you're at the end of March and you think, wow, is that what I was thinking? We do shift really quickly, but if we're not using numbers, sometimes we can't see how well we're doing. But I think a couple of words at the end of every day, usually gratitude is a good thing, because when you write down in gratitude, you're positively analysing anything that's bothering you. So I would put something like, I'm overcoming this relationship challenge that I'm having with so-and-so, something like that. And I'll look back and I think, I actually really did overcome it, you know? So it's really good to keep a journal, even if it's just a couple of sentences. And in my book I talk about something called morning pages, which isn't my idea, it's Julia Cameron. The Artist's Way. Yeah, it's about bringing out your creativity. So I did it before I started writing the book. So journaling is really good. So if nothing else, I would recommend that. And then a vision board is a really great fun thing to do. And if any of you are coming on the retreat down in Kent in May, we'll be doing all of these. But this was my latest vision board. I managed to get it onto one A4 sheet. And even now, I did this in September last year, and even already some of these things are coming out. Some of these things are coming true. And I don't look at it all the time. But yeah, there's some of the things that I've done. This was because I wanted to do a women's retreat. The women being together, doing yoga by the pool. We're going to be doing that on our retreats this year. This is dancing on turntables. I used to be a DJ, so I used to DJ on turntables, but I still want to keep up my dancing. I love my dance music, so keep that going. This was the Camino, and when I stuck this on there, I had no idea I was going to do the Camino de Santiago. And there's a woman with a rucksack on her back. It's a long walk across northern Spain, 500 miles. So I did that. I also treated myself to a facial before I came over. Because that was something I wanted to do, is more pampering, somebody else to do the pampering. So some of these things I think, wow, that's really good. What I need to do is learn to do the peacock pose now. And I think these are my meditation cushions, and it's funny, I've given up coffee for Lent, and I went to Granada a couple of weeks ago, and they've got a Moroccan quarter there. And they do all these amazing, instead of having cafeterias, they have teterias, which is the Spanish word for tea. Yeah. And they have all these ornate teapots in the Moroccan quarter with all these amazingly tiny little ornate glass cups to drink it out of. And I didn't even think about that when I cut that out. But yeah, so all of these things are happening. And, you know, getting an award. I've been nominated for an award with a company called First Women. So I don't know whether it will come off or not, but it's just interesting that these things are starting to happen. Might wonder why I've got a cow on there. That's to give up dairy. Start loving the cows again.
But to do that, did you actually think about what you were cutting out, or was it just random stuff? That you thought, oh,
I just picked it out and I thought, well, that looks nice. That could be
Yeah.
a dream of mine. And I just cut them on there. It's a really nice thing to do with women. Really nice thing to do with women. Drink coffee and sit and chat about life. And you're just blindly cutting out these pictures and stick them all on there. So that's something we'll be doing on the women's retreat in May as well. The 7 spells of body magic. So what I teach in the book is that generally when we want to get from A to B, we go through certain stages. And in the book, I'll show you that in a moment actually. Meditation and obviously support, I've mentioned this already, support from other people is really important. So these are the 7 spells of body magic. So this, in my mind, is what I went through to get where I wanted to go. But I think you can apply it to anything that you want to get in your life, you want to do or achieve in your life. So first of all, you have an idea. So your idea was, I might come along to that talk that Julie is running on Wednesday. And then you set an intention. Yeah, I think I'll do that. So you set an intention and that leads to focus. So you're coming here and you're really focused on listening to what I'm saying. And that transforms into your understanding. So you get a deeper understanding of what you're saying because you're focused on it. You know, you're not thinking about, well, you might be thinking about what you're going to have when you get home, what you're going to say. But that'll transform into understanding. And when you understand things a lot more, you get more confident. They say knowledge is power, don't they? So you get more confident in what you're doing. And when you become more confident, that transforms into enthusiasm. So you have this confidence, and all of a sudden, you know, like I was coming here today, and I had a really great evening last night. So I was really excited. I've got all this new confidence. I'm coming here, and I hope I sound quite enthusiastic. I feel quite confident after talking on the radio today. Whereas before, I was coming out thinking, "Oh my God," you know. But I just pushed through it because I've got the idea, I had the intention, I gave it some focus. And I tried to understand it a little bit more, so it wasn't quite so scary. So I gained a lot more confidence from that, and therefore enthusiasm. And after that radio interview, I was like, God, I want to do some more. I'm determined, you know. I've got renewed life and power, and that transformed into commitment because I'm ready to commit to do more of that activity. And then I become more disciplined because I know that it's paying off, it's helping me and hopefully helping other people. So I get more willpower. Now this is where we get challenged. This is where things fall apart. And the reason is because these 3 are all to do with your conscious mind. Sorry, 4. These 4 are all in your control. You can choose to go to a seminar, you can choose to watch a video, you can choose to go to a yoga class, you can choose to read a magazine article. These 4 are all what's called your conscious mind. So your conscious mind is about that big, but we think it's everything. We think a conscious mind is your whole being, that everything is your consciousness because it's all you're aware of, because you're conscious of it. But sooner or later, something comes in from your unconscious mind that totally obliterates all of your plans. And that's when your discipline is challenged. So when you go to that wedding, for example, you have 1 glass of cava, and you have another glass of cava, and then all of a sudden everything is okay to eat. You know, you can have 2 platefuls from the buffet, it doesn't matter. You'll be fine on Monday. You've been really good this year, so what the hell? You know, so the discipline becomes challenged, and therefore the willpower just subsides. You know, so that's the unconscious mind keep coming in. It's either the unconscious mind or the subconscious mind. I'm going to be talking a lot about that tomorrow. So, but if we can get through that, if we can grow the conscious mind to be a lot bigger and a lot more powerful, we can create this discipline and we can build on this willpower, which helps us to understand ourselves. We can start to build on it. And sometimes we might have to trip up a few times. It's like we were saying, sometimes you have to fall a couple of times before you learn. You know, we learn by mistakes. If we never made any mistakes, we wouldn't know anything really, would we? Or certainly wouldn't know any life scales. And that self-knowledge gives us a lot more patience, so we can then go on with more energy and have more tenacity, and that transforms into success. So it's a bit of a journey, but it does work. It does work. Once we understand the process, we can pick out the bits that might just trip us up if we're not watching, if we're not aware. So this is the mind thing that I'm going to be sharing tomorrow at the meditation thing here. But the conscious mind is tiny by comparison. But it's everything to you. It's all you know. It's all you're aware of. It's the one that says, I'm going to go to yoga this week. I'm going to sit and meditate tomorrow morning. I'm going to take the dog for a walk. And I'm going to sit on the top of the hill and I'm going to watch the sunrise. That's your conscious mind. It really is the best mind of all, because it's all your good intentions. It's everything you want to do. I'm going to buy loads of salad this week. I'm going to have a smoothie every morning. But then there's these other two big buggers that come in and they just get in the way a little bit. Because the unconscious mind, you're not aware of it because you're unconscious of it, right? But it's there to keep you safe. If you were using your conscious mind to get out of the way of a bus coming at you at 50 miles an hour, you wouldn't stand a chance. But your unconscious mind would have you out of there before you could even breathe, because it wants to keep you safe. This is why mothers can pick up cars to release their child underneath, because they've got so much power, but it's not conscious, it's not premeditated, you know, it does it. You must have maybe had a glass of wine before you've even thought about it, or you've downed a cake or a fudge brownie before you've even tasted it, you know, I've done it so many times. It's unconscious eating, isn't it? Because you're not actually satiating that desire, it's just you're filling some other kind of need. The subconscious mind is a very interesting one, because that's all about your patterns of behaviour. So you're not doing it to keep you safe, you're doing it because you've always done it. And I used an example, I think, on the radio today. But this is your habits. This is your habits, because this is where, if I've given up coffee for Lent and I walked down Abington High Street in Northampton and I walked past Nero's, it would be a real struggle for me not to go in, because I've always gone in there. It's been a habit. It was a habit of mine when I worked there, and it's been a habit of mine every time I've gone shopping there. So for me to not go into Nero's would be really difficult. So I would probably go in and have a cup of tea instead. You know, because I've always gone into Nero's, I would do it as a habit. So they're a bit easier to change than addictions. There are habits and there are addictions. This is the subconscious mind. But the unconscious mind works 270,000 times faster than the conscious mind. So this is why it's hard sometimes to not take a chocolate when one is presented to you. Because you don't have time to think about it. Which is why meditation is so amazing. Meditation is the backbone of that book, because meditation grows the conscious mind and it reduces the unconscious mind. It tells your body and your mind and your spirit that everything is okay. You don't need to act like that all the time. Behave yourself. Okay. So then there was the know thy worth. So these are some of the exercises that I teach in the book that I encourage you to practice, to start believing that all of this is worth it, that you're worth it. It's about everything you do for yourself, mind, body and spirit. So it's not just about going and having a manicure or having your hair done or, you know, buying a new dress. They're all material things. They're not going to make your mind feel, well, it might do for about 10 minutes or so, but you want nourishment on other levels as well. So there are lots of healing modalities that I can share with you. One of the best ones has got to be yoga, because it connects you with your body again. You know, if you're emotionally eating, you're not connecting with your body. So yoga is an amazing way. Even if it's not, people say, I can't do yoga because I'm not flexible enough. Duh! That's why you go to yoga. You know, that's why we learn it. Nobody's flexible when they go to yoga. Least of all, you know, the fittest people in the world are probably the least flexible. So it's flexing your